I don't know how that woman does it. I sometimes, you ever seen Men in Black? Men in Black, all the humans aren't humans, like they look human, but there's aliens in human suits. That woman has got to be an alien. That white woman, one, they shouldn't have sit that bitch there. I don't know what the city's doing, thinking they're doing people a favor, putting benches along 280 in the hot sun with no shade. But anyway, that woman, don't you step, you stupid little dog. You are going. This dog is really risking his life. You do not need to be in the road. They over here trying to cross 280, right? I didn't hit the dog. The guy behind me didn't hit the dog, but he came closer. Dog stepping right in front of the road. That little tiny black chihuahua. I'm glad he didn't get hit. I can't see the comments. Nobody's commented yet. I don't know who's watching. But if Ravenheart goes back to I ain't smoking no more. So you can be happy about that. It's gonna take about 10 minutes to drive home, 10 minutes to drive back. She just waited for an hour in Alamo for Brittany to get out of work. But I just really don't feel like sitting there for an hour. It's hot, my air conditioner doesn't work, hardly works. I don't want to just burn gas, leaving it on, running the air conditioner. They telling me that that ticket for that tag light might be $100. Got to check your vehicles and see if that tag light's out. I don't even want to go to. Sort of feel like I'm in prison already, because any little thing and they'll pull me over and ask to search. I ain't got nothing, but they still inconvenience. It's an inconvenience. It's like it's borderline. It is. It feels like harassment. You know, I don't even want to go. When I get off work, it's already almost 5. I used to not want to leave the house after 10. Now I don't want to leave the house after 7. Can't even leave the house after 7 p.m. Like if it's 5 p.m., I don't even want to leave the house. I can't. I live on kind of a thin. I don't make very much, and I can't afford to really just be ticketed all the time. I need the money to fix the vehicle. As soon as I was going to get the money, I was going to fix it. I had to fix it anyway. It doesn't help. It's not like I'm not compliant to the law. It's not helping make me comply by making me pay a fine. It's just making it harder for me to afford to fix the vehicle. And I got extra fines. I got to pay more useless eaters than I already was paying. And people will say things to try to justify their parasitism. You don't know what it's like. And all these people that say that had more than I did growing up. All of them, when they tell about their hard life and their poverty, they didn't rough it as bad as I did in McRae when we were growing up. It really didn't. It's not like I don't know poverty. It's not like I don't know lack. It's It really isn't an excuse. Every man has enough muscle on his body and enough brain in his head that he can find a way to do enough work to feed himself without having to depend on other men to help him do it. There's no justification. Now, people say they can't afford it, but they really can. They just can't afford to have all the extra stuff they don't need that they want. Maybe you don't get the PlayStation 5. Maybe you don't get the new phone. Maybe you don't really get to afford to do just about anything for years. Maybe it's 4 or 5 years you can't afford to do anything. That's how I started getting ahead. I was poor. Then I was even more poor for years, making payments to buy land. So I could start to plant fruit and nut trees on the land and start turning a profit. Now, there's safer ways to turn a profit, but you know, I just like the whole fruit tree thing. But people just have a low tolerance for suffering. But I grew up in poverty. Like I said, I'm the oldest of 7 siblings. And my mama and my daddy, they had a certain amount of pride about them, where they would rather do it themselves than ask. If they didn't have to ask for help, they'd rather do it themselves. And so people would say things like, why don't you apply for this or that? But you know, the mentality, that's another thing. I'm talking about atrophy. How if the resistance is taken away, you get weaker, right? So having the discipline and the mindset, I'm not going to take the handouts. I'm going to live on a little bit. And I'm going to, with discipline, save till I get enough capital saved up to be able to make an investment. Now, I'm not blowing smoke up no one's ass. You know, there are people like my dad is of the opinion that it's all mind over matter, and he denies that anyone has any advantages or disadvantages, and he doesn't really, he should have credit for his success because he put in the work, but he also had help from his father. I'm not saying he had a tremendous amount of help, but I'm just saying, like, his father didn't tell him, Granddaddy Browden didn't tell my daddy, you entitled brat, how dare you ask for some money to go on a date? Or, you know, he bought him a truck and everything. Whereas my dad was like, buy your vehicle, give me money for gas to take you to work, save up your own vehicle, go yourself, and, you know, and me and Daddy had a disagreement one time where he was saying, and I was saying that, basically I was saying that it's not just mind over matter. That's part of it. Having a good attitude is part of success, but part of it really is luck, fortune, chance, you know? So I was saying, do you really think some starving Kenyan has the same chance of being an astronaut as some rich, well-connected person in America? And my dad was like, yeah, if he puts his mind to it. I think that's nonsense, really. But I think that will make my dad feel better, to feel like all of his success is due to his own greatness and none of it, and anybody could have done it. You know, not that he had opportunities other people didn't have, that he was born in a different time with a better economy, that he had a better support network, and that, you know, the culture and traditions of his father were completely different and alien to the ones he had adopted from his new rich friends, you know? Because his rich friends was dealing with a different problem, spoiled children that were given everything. And his dad had a different problem. They were poor and coming up, and he wanted his son to do better than he did, and he wanted his son to do better than his daddy. But then that didn't last for all generations. It gets to a point to where he's like, nah, I don't want to, you know, you get a generation that don't want to help the next generation. And Like I'm saying, like people talk about white privilege, and mostly what they're talking about is bullshit. Mostly it is bullshit. It's not like white people have this special privilege or whatever. But part of it is true. Part of it is true. Like, you don't choose who your ancestors are, but there are some benefits to not being a minority in a country. Like the same people, and I'm not saying, like, I'm not a cultural Marxist and all talking about the whole white privilege. Like, it's totally exaggerated, and people say it, like, are very delusional saying about white privilege. But there is some truth to, there's benefits to being white in a majority white nation, just like there's benefits to being Japanese in a majority Japanese nation. And there's also benefits of having certain DNA, that because the culture is largely a reflection of that DNA. There's just a lot. So I don't deny that it exists. I'm just saying it's not as big or doesn't play as big of a role as what people say it does. But my dad was acting as if there was like that he had just as good of a chance of being an astronaut as a starving Kenyan in Kenya. And I don't believe you can just set your mind to it and that overcomes every obstacle. Now, having that attitude means that if you do have a chance, you'll make it. If you don't have that attitude, even if you've got a chance to make it, you might not even try. So just sort of blindly believing you can do whatever you set your mind to, even though it's not true, is a very useful attitude and mindset. So it doesn't have to be true to be beneficial. If somebody doesn't even believe that there's a chance, they won't even try. So even if sometimes people are delusional, but it pays off because they try when other people would give up. They think they have a chance. I mean, they think they have a greater chance. They think the small chance is an inevitability, and so they don't give up. Now, so I'm not saying that the starving kid in Kenya cannot be an astronaut. I'm just saying I think that it's foolishness for my dad to suggest that they have just as great of a chance as a wealthy kid in an American white neighborhood. It's now if he does become an astronaut, part of that plan probably has to do with getting the hell out of Africa and getting into the West. And I think it's just kind of, I don't know what to call it, but it's just not honest for my dad to pretend like the starving Kenyan has all the same opportunities that he did. It's not true. But also, it's not good to try to, I mean, there's a lot of people that could do a lot more in life. I'm telling you, hard work and self-discipline will get you further than intelligence. Even though intelligence will help. There's a lot of people that could go a lot further in life, but they use excuses like I'm disadvantaged, this person has it better than me, and all of that. But a lot of the disadvantages are advantages if you have the right attitude. For instance, like me, right? I'm the oldest of 7 siblings. We grew up poor, but I had a certain hunger. And I had there was a lot of arguing in the household about debt and poverty and a lot of stress based on it. So I said, I'm never going to go in debt. So see, I bought my land cash in contract, making payments. I never took out a loan from no Rothschild bank. I never inflated the currency by doing that. And people said, there's no way to do it without going into debt. Well, that's not true because I've done it. I got my land, no debt. I did not live beyond my means. Now, so growing up poor, being hungry, being malnourished, being more susceptible to seizures and just abuse, some trauma, some bullying, a lot of poverty, a lot of chaos. These weren't like good things, but they became good things because I didn't let none of it destroy me. One, I said there's certain bad decisions that were made that I'm not going to make. So one, because I grew up in poverty, I knew that the bottom's there, you know. I knew I never buy lottery tickets in my life. I never paid for television. I never, I lived in a trailer with no air conditioner. I didn't run the air conditioner. I had screen windows. At nighttime, I left it up to let it cool down. During the heat of the day, I was at work. I just roughed it, and I made sure to never get in debt. I saved up money. I bought assets when they handed out them stimulus checks and people went to buying drugs or just spending the money or buying a new phone. I bought tools. I bought fruit trees. I bought assets. Other people's money that they got just come to me. Let's try this shit again, I guess. So, and also later on in life, it helped me too. When I got overweight and I needed to lose, I knew what it was like to go to bed. People would tell me my grandparents didn't have it as bad, but they thought they had it worse because they'd say things to me like, "You don't know what it's like to go to bed hungry," and they're talking about how they ain't never gone to bed hungry. It's like, yeah, I do. I know what it's like when mama's dividing food out to all these kids, and you're like, "I'm still hungry," and she's like, "No, you're not." I ain't gonna get into it too much, but what they normally do, your mama, your grandmama, most women, they romanticize the past. They retell the history of the past, and everything was better than what it was. None of the bad stuff happened. It was never that bad. It was never that, Oh, I done turned it off from last night. They're going to make me have to go back and refight in India again. Damn. I'm trying to figure out some new moves and not do the same thing all the time. I haven't learned any of the combos. Well, I did an uppercut on accident before. Oh, shit. I'm holding this phone between my knees. And I think, have you ever had, like, I don't know, like you're picking up a washer and a screw, or you're just trying to do something with your right hand and you're holding something in your left hand and it messes you up, and then you take whatever's in your left hand out. The phone died a while ago. When I went to Wheeler as a child, and I heard it as an adult too from black people, a lot of black people were under the misconception that white people didn't live in poverty, that we didn't have it as bad as them, that we didn't know what poverty was. And there are a lot more poor blacks than poor whites. There's a lot of ultra super rich whites that are really Jews that skew the numbers, because you got a few of these Jewish white billionaires, and then when you average the super rich Jewish billionaires with the other white people, they'll say they have 10 times as much money as black people, but it's really skewed by your billionaires and your billionaires that have like $1,000 million to be a billionaire, and your millionaires and everything else. But there's a oh shit, I wish I would have just done a power attack while he was. This whole time I didn't even know Ellen Wright did anything. Left and right. Could have been doing all these power attacks. But I remember this. I never had money for like a locker until like a teacher bought my locker one year. And I never had money for like concessions and snacks. Now the government did give me some free lunch at school now because we was poor enough. But I didn't have no extra 50 cents to go buy a Coke or a drink or something like that at recess. I never had that. There was a time or two that my friend Nick bought me a snack, but for the most part, I never got nothing like that. And this black boy, he was talking about how white people don't know about poverty or whatever, and he reaches in his hand, he reaches in his pocket to get change for the snack, and he accidentally drops this handful of change and quarters and everything on the floor that go everywhere. And for him and for most people, that wasn't no money. But for me, that was a lot of money. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that he was over here saying he was poor and he's got all this money for snacks and I ain't got none. But I wasn't typical of my class. Like when they would give us a school project, they would assume that everyone had a computer and internet, but I didn't. They'd assume that people could just go to the library. But my mama didn't have the gas money for us to be going to the library every Friday for a school project on the internet. We didn't have time for all that. There was like at least a baby or two at all times. This is a game changer right here. This L and R button. Now it is slow though. So when I don't land it, I get in a mess. But if I can land a few of them. Oh, shit. I should have done an uppercut when he did that. Still ain't figured out this game. If I would just Google for a second, I could look up what the moves are for this thing and probably change the whole game. I want to know how to throw people now. It seems like ever since I learned that power move, I've been doing worse. But I try to overuse it. I ain't even learned the fundamentals. No, come on. Yeah, that was so close. You see my life? I'm about dead, but I still won. Finally! The bayoneting of the babies has stopped. We've cleaned the rivers of... Oh, no, it ain't. Oh, damn, I lost a round and won a round. I ain't even won yet. I spoke too soon. I might still lose. Damn, they might keep bayoneting these Chinese babies. Oh, this is not looking good at all. He's come back for revenge. No. Oh, shit. Okay, I still ain't beat Japan. I spoke too soon. I lost, then I won one time and thought I had won the thing. The other time I won, I done lost 3 times after that or something. I decided to stop changing characters because I ain't even learned how to use one of them yet. Oh, damn. How did I do that? See, I need to figure out. Damn. I'm getting fed up with this game. Son of a bitch. I think I done got too irritated. I'm just gonna keep losing this. What did this one do? I done forgot that I done turned the difficulty down. I thought I was making progress. I ain't even making any progress in this game. At least maybe I can play it a little bit easier than Turbo and stay alive long enough to figure out what the buttons do. Ah, damn, I just jump into his kick on. I should have stayed. What the hell was I supposed to do? Damn! Son of a bitch! I have to cuss in the most lame ways. Every time I'm live or cussing a video, I always cuss in the most boring, lame-ass combos. In real life, I'm much better at cussing. In real life, I have much better cuss combos than son of a bitch, I tell you that. Man. I mean, I didn't even want to do an uppercut. I wanted to do a spin around thing. So, that just fuck it. Fuck the motherfucking. Turn the whole fucker off. You give me Age of Empires on full difficulty, Age of Empires, Age of Kings, full difficulty, and I'll 8 players. I'll defeat everybody, not lose a single life, not lose a single man. But I'm playing Street Fighter and I suck. I'm trash at that game. Taking 2 decades off of video game playing, it's done some damage. That's why. I shouldn't even be on live right now. I just am because I can be, I guess. I'm done with that Street Fighter. I'm done losing. I don't know how as a child me and Josh played that and beat the whole game. Now I'm stuck, can't even get past the second place. I think I'm just going to get off alive and go educate myself some. Use this time to, I don't know, learn about some matriarchal societies that failed or something. I don't know. Y'all ever seen that homeless guy that's not really homeless on live? Like, he'll spend 14 hours asking for money, and then he sleeps in a hotel every night and eats at Dairy Queen almost every day. And he's like balding, and I think he's kind of redheaded, and he's got like tactical black dress, like he's some kind of cop or something, with a backpack in the front backpack. I watched his channel for a little while. Like, I wouldn't watch it for hours and hours on end, but I check in on him. You know, I used to be kind of curious. Is he going to get the hotel tonight? And he always does. He's always in a room every night. So I kind of feel like that isn't homeless. I kind of feel like he's employed being a live streamer, and he makes enough money to afford a hotel every single day in Dairy Queen. He should just get a place to rent. But I guess he can't guarantee an income for a rent. I don't know. Who knows how much money he does or doesn't have. And there's always new people to his channel defending him in the comments, getting mad at the people that are saying, they're really telling the truth. And if you say anything you don't like, he'll just delete your comments. Yeah, so if you have been watching his channel for a long time and you make a comment like, this guy sleeps in a hotel every single night, he's not homeless, he's going to delete your comment. But I ain't trying to hurt the man's hustle. Sometimes people like that, they'll start having these delusions of grandeur where they're talking about like they're the chosen one and everything. And it's like, how are you the chosen one? You don't even have a job. Like, you're not even doing anything. And they'll say things like, I would work a job if it was a noble cause. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's a noble cause just to not be a leech off of somebody else. Like, you just getting a job, paying your own way, buying your own food, and not costing the taxpayer or not begging from other people. That in itself would be an improvement, But they're like, they can't work a job like I work. They can't just go get a job that makes, they feel like they deserve to get paid a whole lot more for nothing. And they feel like they got to have some sort of super divine purpose attached to their job and all. And it's like, if you would just get any job and stop being a leech on the taxpayer, that would be noble. I saw this thing where they had a bunch of these leftists arguing for government assistance and stuff like this. And the guy would call them out on their bullshit. He'd offer them a job. They'd come up with all kind of excuses why they couldn't work. Like they got mental problems. He'd offer to pay for their psychologist and everything, pay for their therapist. And they'd always come up with some excuse why they couldn't work a job, why they needed to be on benefits. Like, one of them was like this transgender teacher, substitute teacher. So he just works as a substitute teacher and qualifies for a lot of food stamps and other benefits and stuff. And he won't work a different, I don't know. It's just goes back, like I said, a lot of it. The reason that they are attracted to that side of the political compass is because they shun responsibility. If you want all the, it's kind of like being a child into adulthood. They do not feel that they have any social obligation. Like these women that protest for the right to be able to kill their own baby just in case they're not responsible for. It's like they act as if they cannot be responsible for their own sexuality. And so they need to reserve the right to kill babies because they cannot be responsible for their own sexuality. This is like a type of childishness. And there is like a childlike grasp of economics amongst these liberals, these communists. They know nothing of wealth creation. They always want to talk about redistributing wealth. They have no idea how wealth is created in the first place. When people create goods and services that people want, they see that as a bad thing. They see just you're evil if you have, you're good if you have not. DJ is homeless, right? And so some people were saying like, you don't know. All right. Well, he's homeless and he's on a needle. And Miss Sue, when she was alive, she let him stay there. And I think Bonnie had already warned, don't let him stay there because he's stealing. He's on the needle and he's stealing. Well, they let him stay there because he's homeless and he goes to rob her house, right? So then Tracy's going to let him stay there. They say, don't let him stay, he'll steal. And then he robs him. And he was like, he was homeless. I didn't think he would steal from me because I let him have a place to stay. And that's why he's homeless. He's homeless because he robs everybody. He robs his friends. He robs his family. He robs the stranger that takes him in. And so nobody can live with this guy because he doesn't care about anybody else and he'll just rob and use everybody. So I knew another guy that was homeless, and he was digging food out of the trash can behind Piggly Wiggly, and I give him a lot of bags of rice. And I was talking to him, and he really didn't even want to take the rice. And it wasn't but a couple weeks later, somebody had offered him work at a mechanic shop. And it wasn't even a year later, he had his own mechanic shop and he wasn't homeless anymore. And there's another homeless man in the same area, Clark Franklin, is still homeless to this day, but it's a by choice thing. He just goes around and he asks people for money all the time. And a lot of people give him food and a lot of people give him money, and he's always got a sob story and everything. But really, he just doesn't want the responsibility. He doesn't want to work, and he gets a lot of free stuff for nothing. So sometimes some homeless people, they've gone through horrible tragedies. A tornado took their house out, a flood, a fire, or something like that. But a lot of these homeless people really just don't want responsibility, and they don't want to work, and they're lazy, and they're entitled. And even if you offer them a job, they want more and more and more money. Like, they'll want more money than what you make per hour to do something that you're just giving them a job out of charity. You could do it yourself. And they'll want a god awful amount of money to hardly do anything. And then they'll want to steal from you. Got to realize some of these people become homeless because they backstabbed and crossed their family and their friends. And everybody they know knows them well enough to know not to let them in their house. And then, but what I've noticed is the homeless people that don't want to be there, they don't stay there that long. Because there's a lot of people willing to help a homeless person. But a lot of the people, they choose the lifestyle of being homeless. And sometimes when I'm paying my insurance and the gas and the taxes for other people to eat without working, and I'm doing all this stuff, sometimes I think, shit, maybe I should just give up. Maybe I should be homeless. Shit. I'm not going to do that, but so sometimes people feel sorry for people when they shouldn't feel bad for them at all. In my 20s, I give to the homeless all the time till I realized, I was naive about things. I started to realize they're choosing this as a free ride. They're just leeches. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I'd even say the majority of them. They're choosing the lifestyle of a leech. They don't want to contribute to society. They just want to siphon off from it. A lot of them are mentally ill, but a lot of them are just junkies. A lot of them are on the needle. But the thing is, like, there's some people that they'll say that I'm cruel, or they'll get on to me about, like, I had this woman, she's talking about go somewhere with that baby back bullshit or something. And I wasn't telling bullshit. I was telling the truth. I used to be addicted to alcohol and I quit it. I used to smoke crack and I quit it. And I'm just telling the truth. These addicts are full of shit. They're pretending. They're wanting to convince you it's harder to quit than what it really is. They're wanting to convince you that they've got some greater pain than anybody else has ever felt. They're wanting to convince you that it's just so hard. And the truth is, they just don't want to quit. It's always easy to do what you want to do. So when I wanted to quit because I wanted to quit. And then I wanted to keep doing it because of withdrawals and all kind of other stuff, right? But I wanted to quit more than I wanted to do it. You can want contradictory things, but you always do the thing you wanted the most. So it's very easy to quit. I'm sorry about that. My phone died in the living room, and I charged it a little bit. I had like 1 or 2%, and I come in here on live forgetting I need to plug it on the charger. So my phone died and I'm back. So what I was saying about, I was talking about crack addiction or whatever. There's withdrawals. There's real strong withdrawals for 3 days. But the withdrawals would make me want to do it. But I also did not want to do it, right? So people talk about envisioning the future and envisioning the positive thing to motivate yourself. And that's well and good to do that. But it's also good to think of the negative to motivate yourself. Think about, what's the worst case scenario? What if I don't get my life together? What if I don't save this money? What if I don't make good decisions? Think about how bad can it get? And I could look around and I could see other people, how it was going, and I could tell it could get really bad. Bad now, but it could get a lot worse. And so I didn't want it to be like that. and I could imagine that it could be better. You know, I let the negative and the positive uh, motivate me, but I did what I wanted to do. And so a lot of people are lying, and a lot of people have family members lying for them. Like, you know, I was an alcoholic. I quit drinking and whatever, and I quit the crack. And my mama had a worker whose daddy was an alcoholic, and they were making all these excuses. They're like, everybody's not like you. Everybody don't have the same discipline. Everybody can't just quit. It's a chemical imbalance. It's this and that. There's neuroplasticity in the brain. The brain can rewire itself. And some people will say, well, there's a I got a mental disorder. Well, you can order your mind as well. You can change it. But there's a lot of money in getting you to believe you can't change it. There's a lot of money given the answers that don't have the answers. It's the blind leading the blind. And so the truth that'll help a lot of addicts is what most people aren't saying. Most people are babying the addict. Most people are making excuses for the addict. Most people are blaming, if it wasn't for the drug dealer, if it wasn't for those friends, and they've got somebody that they love that's an addict, and they don't want to accept the truth about the person that they love is that person is selfish, and short-term pleasure is more important to them than the long-term relationship with you. And that's painful. People don't want to. That person is telling you they want to quit, but they don't really want to quit. They just want you to believe that they want to quit or that they're trying. They're really not trying, because it happens the same with everyone that ever quits any kind of hard addiction or anything like that. They get to a point where they don't want to do it. And they were doing what they wanted to do before when they were doing it, and they're doing what they want to do when they quit. And if you really don't want to do it, you won't do it. The side effects hit you, the withdrawals hit you, and they're painful, and you got to deal with them, but they're not what people make them out to be. It's bad, but it's not as bad as they make it out to be. It's not impossible like they make it out to be. And there's a lot of people that are still addicted to drugs that I've quit that tell me I'm a liar, but I'm the one that quit. I know what I'm talking about. And then I've seen some of them quit, and when they quit, they tell the truth. They're like, you know what? You was right. I was just doing what I wanted to do. You know, but you've got to make up you got to, some people don't know what they want. Some people are arguing back and forth. I want this, I want that, I want this. So now I'm quitting weed completely. Quit it completely. Now I quit it, went back to it, quit it, went back to it. But I'm quitting it completely because I completely want to quit it. Before, I wanted to quit it but I didn't really want to quit it. You know, I wanted to quit it to have some more money. I liked it. I didn't really want to give it up. I didn't really think it was that harmful. But now I've got a bigger goal. I've got something more important. I'm tired of a lot of police corruption. I'm just tired of a lot of government corruption. And I have my own enemies. I have my own friends and enemies, and I have just different reasons. And I'm just thinking it's not worth it because it's a liability. Any type of pleasure I could derive from smoking weed is really at this point not worth the damage it does to my lungs, but it's just not worth it as being something that I could get in trouble over. It's just not worth it. And I think about, and I didn't have anything to really motivate me to quit besides my health, which should be a reason, my finances, that should be a reason, you know, but there were positive things to it too. Like it's anti-epilepsy medicine. It reduces inflammation. Like I could give myself a lot of excuses and reasons to keep doing it. And honestly, I think it has a lot of medical properties. And I honestly, I don't think it was that harmful to me in of itself. It's just the fact that the tyranny that we have that totally disregards the Constitution they will enforce this will on me. They'll say, we say you can't have it, and we'll punish you for having it. So there's people that do a lot worse. Like I was talking about the cop Patel that was trying to have sex with minors and get them to go to Atlanta with him. Or the two black cops in McRae that don't bust prostitutes but pay to sleep with them. are the cops in McRae that take cuts of prostitution. They'll bust the prostitutes if they don't give them some of their money, and they pimp out women. Are the cops that just are racist as fuck. It's not most of them, but there's some that are just racist. Busted that black boy's head up all over the road. And I can't really go after them if they can just arrest me because I smoked a blunt. You know what I'm saying? And the meth epidemic really hurt my county. It was really bad. But you know, that never made me so to where I can't even just like I could still go to the store and get food. But these cops are so harassing me, I don't even feel it doesn't even feel safe to just go to town to get something to eat. If it's not daylight, it don't even feel safe to go out because of these cops. And you know, used to I hear people talk like this and I just be like, you did something you ain't supposed to do. Or you must be disrespecting them cops. And I just hadn't met the sociopathic cops yet. I had just met good, reasonable, respectable cops. You know, and until you experience police brutality, you just figure a lot of these black people are just acting up. But it's just cops know who can and can't afford a lawyer. And they're not all the same. But the institution itself, it breeds corruption, and it breeds a us versus them mentality. It gets them to not look at Americans as their fellow citizens, but suspects. And the power dynamic and the imbalance of it, and the amount of leeway they have and ability to get away with corruption way more than the average person. The way that it's harder to sue them than a regular person. There's a lot of reasons that it just sort of breeds this corruption in the police force. And they also have the same sort of mentality as teachers. Like, it don't matter how much you pay them. They would be like, I'm not getting paid enough for this job. I'm not getting paid enough, you know? So they're quick to want to take bribes or figure out how to make money off the drug trade or prostitution or whatever. There's cops, they just, maybe if they'd pay them more, there wouldn't be as much corruption, but I don't know. You can never satisfy a greedy heart. And a sociopath is a sociopath. Many of the same things that personality traits required to be a good criminal are the exact same personality traits required to be a good cop. One, you've got to have a certain love for adventure and risk taking to be either one of those things. You've got to have a certain amount of bravery to be either one of those things. There's a lot of similarities. And in both of those, both in the criminal world and the cop world, it's the sociopaths that do the best. So it's like the horseshoe theory, you know? A cop is just a different kind of criminal most of the time. You know, really, like, you look at the top of the people who make the laws are the biggest criminals. The people at the bottom that are breaking them and the people at the top that are making them are both the ones that are on the immoral spectrum. The lawbreaker is the lawmaker. Think about the life of Augustus. Think about all the things Augustus did, all the taboos he violated, all the laws he broke. Same with Julius Caesar. The way to get to the position to be able to make the laws, you don't get there by following all the rules. You get there by being a rule maker, not a rule follower. You know, you don't get there. The slave will never be the king. You know, the person who's a good slave, who follows all the orders, he's never going to be the one that's making the laws. And the people who make the law are above the law. They're the lawmakers. We say they shouldn't be above the law, but that's the reality of it. You're never going to see, you're never going to see Bill Clinton go to jail for killing Vince Foster. Or, I forget the name, but Bush Sr., he had certain people assassinated that hurt his oil companies. And there's certain people that they're never going to get charged for murder. A matter of fact, they can do a genocide. They can go to war. They can kill hundreds of thousands of people, and they'll never go to jail for being a murderer. But we can't. There's a difference in ruling over people and being ruled over, you know? morality, being nice, all these rules we have, that works at the world of peace, not the world at war. That works in following the laws, but not making them. Like to be able to hold power and stay in power requires a total different set of morality than to just be a good citizen working within the power structure. And there's a lot of things that I would really love to talk about, but I'm very hesitant to talk about it. Some of it is because I know people that friends and family, and my boss. I never know who's watching. And then there's some things, there's some truths that I know, but I also know I've learned that people aren't always ready for them. There's certain truths that people are not ready for and are not in a place to accept them. And you really got to feel somebody out first and know, is this a person that's going to handle this truth and love and appreciate me for giving them this truth? Or is this a person that's going to hate me for giving them this truth? Am I going to make an enemy out of this person? It's not always worth it. Like some people do not want to wake up. They want to be sheep. They're happy being sheep. And if you try to wake them up, you're just going to anger them. They're just going to see you as a threat. It's not going to be received. And if your point is to wake someone up and telling them the truth isn't going to wake them up, then telling them the truth is pointless. They've got to be ready for certain things. And there were a lot of truths that I'd heard several times in my life, but I didn't hear them. I was deaf to it. I would hear it, but I couldn't accept it. I held certain opinions very strongly, and certain truths contradicted my opinions that were attached to my identity. And so those truths felt like an attack on my own identity, and so I couldn't accept them yet. I just couldn't accept it. And then later on in life, I would realize those things were true. And I was almost kind of mad right when I heard the truth. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me, And then I thought about it. They did tell me. I didn't listen. They did tell me. I wasn't ready to listen. Especially about Israel. I was not willing to listen about Israel at all, because I had this dogmatic belief that blessings and cursings were tied to Israel. And so I just could not accept a lot of truths about it. I just wasn't willing yet. And I also believe that the Bible had no errors in it or no contradictions and was the perfect truth. And so there were certain things that were true, but for it to be true, it meant something in the Bible was wrong. And I was not at a place to where I could accept that. That is probably Okay, I got a question. Oh, now my audience is on when I get back, right? I took the call from Brittany. When I take a phone call, y'all don't hear the phone call, do y'all? Does it disconnect? I'll have to go back and watch it. So, back to what I was saying before I was saying what I was last saying, right? So when Brittany was quitting, because I ain't gonna talk too much about it because that's her business and I ain't asked her, and maybe she'll get mad at me and maybe she won't. I don't really like to say too much, but she was quitting what she was doing, and she had an addiction. And she would tell me about how hard it was. And I would just sort of remind her, look, I quit alcohol and crack. You can't really bullshit me, about it. And she didn't really get all that mad about me saying it, but she thought maybe, I don't know what she thought. Maybe she thought her addiction was harder than my addiction or what, or I don't know. And, and she quit a few times and then relapsed and went back to it, right? But the day that she'd been to jail before, she'd been to jail other times and it didn't have that same impact. But she thought she didn't even have anything on her. And she had the smallest little piece in her purse. And they searched so long before they ever even found that. And she spent a night in jail. Or it might have been 3 days. It might have been 1 day, 1 to 3 days. I don't really remember. It wasn't that long. And she just decided. That was when she decided she didn't want to do it no more. And she got out and she just quit. It's been more than half a year now. And now she looked back, she's like, she sees I was right about it. That, it's just when she really wanted to quit, she quit. And so I'm not saying bully these people that are addicts, but some people make a lifetime profession off of getting attention and milking sympathy from it. They try to milk as much attention and sympathy from their addiction, and then they try to milk as much attention from the recovery. They try to get so much outside validation the whole time they're an addict. Like, you don't know how hard it is to quit. And now Brittany didn't do that. I didn't do that. Most of the people that are really successful about quitting don't do that. But there's a lot of people, they want to try to make it seem like they climbed Mount Everest, or they made it to being president of the world, or they conquered something. They try to make it out like it's some great achievement more than what it is. And they want the whole world to basically worship them and clap them on the back and be like, yeah, that was so hard. You quit. That's so hard. So good for you. And they want them to just do that forever. They're like 9 years sober, 10 years sober, 12 years sober. And that's kind of ridiculous, and that's kind of part of why they are an addict to begin with. You cannot really just be so dependent on outside validation. You really got to do it for yourself, and you really got to just want to quit. And that's really all there is to it. And I ain't going to say much more about that. But I'm not like, I'm listening to my own self in these videos, and, today everybody's giving advice. Everybody's a teacher. Everybody's an expert and everything. And I'm not really claiming to be all that. I don't, but I do want to help people. And I want to try to give, to add some value where I can add some value. And I'm not saying, now, I had a lot of addicts. They act like I'm being mean, that I'm being a bully, that I'm minimalizing their suffering or whatever. And I'm really not coming from any place of hate. I'm not coming from a place trying to belittle people. It's just, it may sound like that a little bit, but I just think sometimes the cold, hot truth, just sometimes being very blunt, and it may be a painful truth. It may be a not baby and hurt your feelings kind of truth, but it might actually sting enough. You might feel something to wake up, And I'm just saying, really, you need to take responsibility for your own mindfulness. Like, you may have a thought come in your head that seemed like it come from nowhere. You don't even feel like you're the author of the thought. And it just sort of seemed like oppressive, like some negative thought just come in your head or something. You still have the power to create the next thought of how you answer it. Maybe some other thoughts just pop in, but you can also inject thoughts into the stream, You can steer your mind. And there's some people that don't even know they can do that. They just sort of let it run on autopilot. You can steer your mind. You can steer your emotions. You can steer your body. All of these things may be outside of your control, but you can master them and get them in your control. Like some people, they don't have control of their breathing. They don't have control of their eating. They don't have control of their lives. They don't have control of their finances. They don't have control of their friendships. They don't have control of their relationships because they've just let it all get out of control. They say, I've got a mental disorder, I've got a mental illness, but they haven't put their mind in control. All day long, they feed their mind entertainment, propaganda. They feed it music. They feed it television. They feed it internet. And they just feed it friends' advice, parents' advice, past memories, past trauma. And they're just constantly bombarding their mind, but they're not directing it. They're filling it up with all kind of different ideas, everybody else's idea, but they're not directing it. They're not controlling it. They're not taking responsibility for their mind. So there's people that really feel helpless. They're an addict and they're like, I just can't help it. They'll say that. They can help it. They're just not helping it. And it's sort of a skill you learn. You can start to learn to tame your mind. You know, I never watch porn. I never watch it. And I discovered it in my teen years. And I used to would watch it. And I would feel bad afterwards. I'd feel sick afterwards. I'd feel low energy afterwards. I didn't like that I was doing it, but I was kind of addicted to doing it. And now I don't ever even think about it. Now I have thought about it, talking about it for this video, because I was making the point about college being free, so it don't make sense to pay for college, porn being free, so it don't make sense to pay for OnlyFans. And so that's why, and then I was mentioning about how I believe it's a weapon. You know, it's not a beneficial thing. It's a weapon to destroy societies. And so I've kind of been talking about it a little bit. But also, I've had a healthy relationship with Brittany. We're not depriving each other. And I don't really, it's easy to not, you know, feel any kind of need to go to anything like that. I don't even, you know, I don't masturbate. I have sex. I don't even masturbate. Some people won't even believe that. They'll be like, yes, you do. And I used to fast. And I used to also just, you heard about no fat, like the belief that you can like retain the energy of those cells by holding them in instead of letting them out. I used to do that. Now I didn't go, like I think the longest I ever went was like 21 days, or it might have been longer than that. I was pushing for a month or something. Then I touched it and accidentally touched it too much. So just gonna do a little bit. But, oh damn, I didn't think about that. Brittany would probably be pissed about me talking about that. That was before I was with her. But still, she don't like me talking about stuff like that. Anyway, if your social relationships are healthier and everything, it's easier to not be tempted into that type of degeneracy in the first place. But before I even had a girlfriend, I didn't want to be watching porn no more. I wanted to quit it, right? I started noticing that it would get started before I thought it got started. It would get started with things like you had seen an advertisement or you had seen a music video where women weren't really dressed that much and everything. And so, you know, part of it, controlling your mind and everything, is you've got to control what you put into it. So I quit watching certain music videos. I quit watching certain things. I've started saying, well, how does this get started? Where does it start at? And I started correcting the behavior. And sometimes that meant just put your phone down and go outside for a walk. Sometimes that meant like go hang out with your friend, because you're not going to do this beside your friend or at work or, you know. And then it just got to where it wasn't a habit anymore. It wasn't a thought anymore. It wasn't very long ago. I was walking, like, you know, I'm not controlled by lust. Even though I'm in a relationship and even though I have, you know, it doesn't control me. And so I'm happy with Brittany. And sometimes I'll walk, and I'll somebody at work will say, "Did you see her ass, or did you see the that ass on that Mexican, or did you see that woman here or there?" And a lot of times I don't even notice the person. I don't even see the person. I'm just like walking in I'm thirsty. I walk in the convenience store, get my drinks, go to the register, buy my drinks, and get out of there. And I'm not looking at other women. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm with Brittany, and Brittany doesn't neglect me. I don't, and now you can always feed it though. Like even if Brittany did everything she was supposed to do, I could let greed grow. I could start to think about, well, what would it be like to be with this woman or that woman, or wouldn't it be a little exciting to text this woman or that woman? And I could feed that other side, and I could grow, and it could grow and take over, or I could just starve that, let it die, and not be there no more. Which is actually a way more simpler and easier and more fulfilling of a life. As soon as you cut out all the bullshit, you trim off the fat, cut out all the bullshit. My relationship with Brittany is way better now that I don't ever think about other women or notice other women or talk to other women, or it's better because a lot in life, a lot about happiness in life is not forgetting all the things you have to be grateful and appreciative of. Because you can have so many blessings in your life and just not appreciate it or take it for granted and be thinking about something you don't have that you want and forget to be happy about all that you do have. And it's a really sad thing to to it's a really sad thing that there's so many people that have everything they need to be happy, but they're not happy because they're only focused on what they want that they don't have. And it's just sad. Excuse me.